Good evening. My name is Glenn Allendorf. I'm with the John Papa John Entrepreneurial Center, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to the Ben S. Summerwill Lecture Series presented by Midwest One Bank. We are thrilled to be hosting this event for the 9th straight year. We've had fantastic speakers in the past, and this year will be no exception. Last spring, we enjoyed hearing the amazing journey of MetaRev from founder Chris Klitgaard. Tonight, we're delighted to have Kevin O'Brien of Creative Management with us. But before we get started, I want to take a minute to thank everyone who made this event possible. Thanks go to Midwest One Bank for their sponsorship of this annual lecture series. Specifically, thanks go to Nick Pfeiffer, whose hard work helped us make this evening possible. From our office, I'd like to thank Ashley Zera, our marketing manager, and Libby Glazer. So thanks to everyone. Can you help me thank them? Of Charlie Funk, Midwest One Bank is a longtime supporter of small business, entrepreneurship, and other community events. We value this partnership and thank them for their support. Please welcome from Midwest One Bank, Kent Yaley.
Thank you, Lynn. We're definitely pleased to be sponsoring this lecture series for the 9th time. Before I introduce our speaker, I wanted to mention the name change of lecture series from Midwest One Bank to Ben S. Summerwill. We changed it in honor of the legacy of the 1934 founder of our bank. During his leadership tenure, Ben Summerwill was well aware of the challenges a young business would face. Mr. Summerwill was responsible for helping many of the businesses that are still in operations in Iowa City today. This includes the business being highlighted tonight. So let's meet our speaker. First and foremost, importantly, he is a father of 3 great kids. Alex, age 19, Lauren, age 16, and Lily, age 14. He is a second generation, 25-year operator. He currently owns 9 restaurants. He has grown up in the business working for his parents, Dorothy and Bill O'Brien, who established the first store in 1958. His full-time career with McDonald started in 1978. During his career, he has held numerous positions under McDonald's umbrella at the local, state, and national levels. He is also extremely active with the local Ronald McDonald House, serving as past president and board member for 30 years. He and his company, Creative Management, have been recognized for many community awards, including 2 times Art Business of the Year and the Association of Fundraising Professionals Large Business in 2011, and also the 2004 Ronald Award winner. He is also very involved in the communities that his business serves. From affiliations include the Chamber of Commerce, Rotary, Heart, and Cancer Associations. He also helped spearhead, with the help of many other dedicated operators in Iowa, the revision of a very restrictive franchise law which allowed McDonald's to continue to do business in Iowa. Please join me in welcoming Kevin O'Brien.
So, you can't hear me. Just raise your hand, especially in the back. Is that good? Are we good in the back? You can't hear me. You can. Yes. Okay, great. Wonderful. Well, it's really nice to be here, and so to get on your good side, you'll find that there's free food, which I know is always important to college students, so we have some samples on every chair. If you don't get one, my assistant and my marketing director are here to make sure that you're well fed. So I want to thank the people at Midwest One. They have been great business partners for me and my family, and I'll tell you a little bit about that story, about how we came to be in partnership. And I'll tell you about some things that my mother went through her business, because she was one of the first, she was the first female franchisee in McDonald's. But before I do that, I want to recognize Chris, who is my executive assistant that I would be totally lost without. So if you want to just give her a hand real quick. And Jordan, who is a product of Iowa and the University of Iowa, and came to work for me as an intern and stayed on and is now my marketing director. And if you like the presentation, she gets all the credit because I'm technically challenged. So anyway, so thank you. So Dorothy OBrien was my mother. She was a trailblazer, risk-taker, visionary, pioneer. She was a widow, single mother, 3 children, married my dad in 1952. They had a small business, Waukegan, Illinois. They had friends. My dad worked in the clothing business, and so a gentleman that was a friend of his, that was actually his boss, sold his business and went to join a business called McDonald's. They moved to, his family, they moved to Tampa, Florida, and he said to my parents, he said, you know, this McDonald's thing, we think this has got legs, you guys might want to check into it. So at the time, there were 20 restaurants in the whole system. McDonald's, my parents in Waukegan, Illinois, used to sit in the parking lot after work, and they used to count the number of cars, and there was a suite of cash register on the front counter, and there were 2 or 3 of them, and they used to write down, they could sit and watch the numbers on the cash register, and they would total things up, and then they would determine how busy that McDonald's was for that night. What was interesting for my parents, and one of the things that kind of convinced them to get interested in the business, is that Waukegan at the time was a heavily Catholic area. And so on Friday nights at the time, in 1958, Catholic Church discouraged people from eating any kind of meat on a Friday. And so what my parents saw is that people would buy the bag full, their Catholic friends would go in and buy bagfuls of hamburgers on Friday night. And they said, wow, if these people are willing to test God, this might be a really good system to get into. So my parents went in and had a one-on-one discussion with Ray Kroc. He was very impressed with my mom, especially, and this is a shot of my mother just before she got into McDonald's, and a shot of my 2 parents who unfortunately are deceased, but had a really terrific impact on McDonald's. So they moved to Iowa with my dad and 3 siblings, and the first restaurant opened in 1958. It was one of the first 60 in the system. What was interesting about it is that McDonald's until 1963 did not allow women to work in the restaurant because they thought they would be a distraction to the males in the restaurant. A story my mom loved to tell about is that they had people called fieldmen that would come in and talk about how to improve your operations. And so the first time this new field person came in, my mother was making milkshakes at a time when we used to make milkshakes. We used to bring in, instead of coming out of the machine like that, a soft serve would be put in a cup along with flavoring, and then it would be put on a spindle called a multi-mixer, and it would be then beaten into a milkshake, and we would sell about 1,000 a day in our peak. So my mother was making milkshakes, and the field person came in and said, pulled the manager aside and said, hey, I don't know if you know this, but women are prohibited from working in McDonald's, and so you're going to have to ask her to leave. So the manager turned to the field person and said, well, she owns the place, why don't you go tell her? So Dorothy was, if you talk to your parents, if there's anybody here that was in business, or talk to your parents, this looks like a young group. But at the time, women were kind of expected to be home, take care of the kids, have the jigger of martinis ready at 5 o'clock or 5:30 or 6, whenever the husband came home. So as far as what she did in 1957, when they negotiated the deal and she got the franchise, was pretty remarkable. Because she was one of the few women in business at the time, certainly in Iowa, and even in Illinois, that actually controlled the business. She owned 99% of the business because she had the assets. Because when they sold, my mother was a widow, and so when she sold the assets from her first husband's business, she was the one that controlled the assets to buy into McDonald's. So she was. My parents worked very well as a team. It was never an issue about that. But the issue is that she was impressive enough to Ray Kroc to give her own restaurant. She was very instrumental in, both of my parents were instrumental in founding the Ronald McDonald House in eastern Iowa. It was interesting because when it first came here, We were one of the smallest markets in the United States to form a Ronald McDonald House. My parents were so committed to what was going to happen and working with the university hospitals that the corporate experts came in and they told her that the house was 50% bigger than it needed to be and that we would never pay for it. Well, the house opened debt-free, due in large part to the fundraising that they did along with a lot of people at the university. So one of the things we'll talk about as far as being an entrepreneur, getting into business, is drive and what it takes to make things successful. So the Ronald McDonald House has continued to grow and expand and feed and house many families. And so there's a significant endowment. This house is very successful. But when she was told that they couldn't get it done, she said, "You just watch." And it happened. She, as an owner in the 60s, she was one of the first $1 million McDonald's restaurants to open, which was unheard of at the time. In fact, people from Oak Brook would come and say, "You know, what are you doing?" Iowa City has been a great town and very generous to us. So, the current market this is how we've expanded since I came into the business. We go as far as, I'm not going to read off, but the different towns that we do business in. And since every market, from a business standpoint, there are 5 different cattlemen's associations that we belong to because we sell a lot of beef and a lot of it comes from Iowa. This is a timeline which shows when the different restaurants were open. 1958 is when their first Riverside Drive McDonald's opened. And this is their first ad. And what's interesting is the original McDonald's actually looked like that, and it was across the street. So there was a Flowerama that is right across the street, and that's where we used to be. And if you go by and you look at the building, it's actually 40% larger than the original building was. So that small little facility was 40% smaller. And one of the interesting things about it is that the bathrooms were situated outside on the side of the building because this building was designed to be functioning in California. The toilets, they had to replace the toilets really often because it was a common scavenger hunt item for many of the fraternities and sororities at the university. In fact, a lot of times there was a particular fraternity that the police that they frequented because they usually had the McDonald's toilet in there. And so my parents, what they did is they negotiated a deal with the fraternity. They said, "Hey, we'll give you free hamburgers if you quit stealing your toilets." So the interesting thing about this building is that it would be, we had a small room air conditioner in the back. We had to, when I worked there as a 5-year-old, my parents put me up on a stool and I used to make milkshakes there. And so what happened is that front counter, imagine today, when it's 20 below zero, and there's virtually little heat, and the heat in the building was actually coming from the grills and the fryers. That's because, again, the building was designed in California, and being one of the first few, they hadn't changed the design yet. So it was a very interesting time. In the first 6 months that my parents opened, the city closed the road in front of them because that was gravel out toward Riverside Drive, and they had to repave it. So it nearly bankrupted them at the time, but they survived. 1977 is when their second store opened, and from some of our archives, my mother was she liked design, and so this is our new building, but she had a sunken dining room and big flowered plants and chandeliers, and people were like amazed when they came into that McDonald's. But that's when the second one opened, and that's when I was asked to come back into the business. My goal was to go into politics and be an attorney, and I just said, "I'll give you 6 months," and I resigned 8 times that year because being in family business can sometimes be stressful, but obviously I'm very pleased that I stuck it out. So the next one, then we started to build restaurants in quick succession. The Williamsburg store opened after that. What's interesting about this is that the Williamsburg store came before Tanger Outlet Mall did. And so Tanger Outlet Mall is there because of the McDonald's that's there. We actually worked at the state, got utilities brought out for the site, and a representative, I had just been at a meeting across the street with a developer out of Chicago that was going to put a an outlet center kitty corner across the interstate. I happened to come back here to work lunch, and a representative from Tanger Outlet asked to talk to the owner. I just happened to be there. And he said, can you tell me why this McDonald's is out here in the middle of nowhere? And I said, well, there isn't anything on Interstate 80 between Iowa City and Des Moines. And I said, this is a big thoroughfare through to Colorado, and this is the main one of the busiest highways, cross highways in the country. So, and he said, well, it just amazes me. And I said, well, there's a company that's going to build across the street. And he said, well, I know who they are. And they've never done this before. So I said, well, there's 27 acres behind this. Why don't you take a look at that? 5 weeks later, Tanger Outlet Center opened, bought the property. The other company from Chicago packed up their stuff, left, and kind of the rest is history. My business doubled that next year because of the amount of people that they brought in. And at one time, I don't know if this is a good sign or not, but Tanger Outlet was one of the top 3 tourist attractions in Iowa. So it's sometimes better to be lucky than good. 1990, the Sycamore McDonalds opened, and we set, what we did from a marketing standpoint is we papered all the walls, we did a 50s design. I had to buy beer for the contractor to make sure that none of his employees and workers would tell people what it looked like. So we papered up until just the lower level of the windows. We had neon that we had going 2 weeks before the restaurant opened. We set a record for opening week in a division, in a region of 700 restaurants that lasted for 11 years. And it was all because of marketing and hype, and I think probably because of all the beer we bought. So, 1996, the Washington McDonald's opened right after. So again, we had kind of built some things in quick succession. Was a small town. This restaurant was delayed for 2 years because of the franchise law, which I'll talk a little bit about. But we were able to get the law changed, and Washington has been a very good community for us. The West Branch McDonald's opened the next year. Interstate store, we looked at the traffic counts, and that's how we determined if we were going to build that restaurant. We've been a good partner with the community of West Branch, and there is my girlfriend is here, Audrey. There she is. So Audrey Kofod is, she and her husband I came to them and I said they were considered stalwarts in the community, and so they gave us about 125 different pictures of old West Branch. And so we made the building on the interior look like the tie into Hoover. We worked with them, we helped them develop their Hoover days, doubled the number of people they had in their runs, and used some of our marketing expertise to help the Hoover library. But Audrey and her husband were great stalwarts of the community and good friends today, so thank you for coming. 99, the Mormon Trek restaurant opened. It was one of those things where this is sort of a market study about, I have 3 restaurants within a 1.5 mile radius. They're 1.5 miles away from each other. The density part of it doesn't work in normal communities, but because the traffic patterns are so different, our relationship at Riverside Drive with the University versus what's happened to the rest of the town makes the Coralville restaurant, the Mormon Trek restaurant, and the Riverside Drive restaurant viable. And then we just did what they call an MRP, which is a major remodel, and brought the store up to date so it's more current with what people are looking for today. 2001, the Coral Ridge McDonald's opened. This was a site that, at the time, the company, it was a very expensive property, but the company said that we can't go there. I said, this is the location in the area because of what's happening with the mall and that. So we pieced together a group with a convenience store to purchase the property. And the mark about this restaurant, one is that it's a 50s style building, and I did it to kind of honor my parents. But the other thing about the restaurant, and it's done very well, but we broke ground the day the Twin Towers were hit. And so that was a very unusual day. Anyway, economy. This building, what was interesting is that the convenience store that opened to the east, or to the west of me, wanted this site at first and then realized they couldn't get some access. So they said, would you mind if we swap buildings? So this is an icon store as far as you come across the interstate. It's one of those things that you're like, wow. So I was stunned that they were willing to trade, but they did, and so it all worked out. So next. And the last one is the North Liberty restaurant is a new prototype. It's built into a strip center, a retail area. We have some expansion to do, but this is a more compact building. I was involved in a partner, and we developed the entire corner there. But this is a prototype of a building that is more efficient, less expensive, and allows an operator to get a better return and go into smaller towns that would support a freestanding restaurant. Ronald McDonald House Charities of Eastern Iowa. We have worked with this group. We're in a 40-store market. We work with the Quad Cities as well, and we not only support the Ronald McDonald House, but we also do scholarships for local high school students, and are working on a Ronald room in the new Children's Hospital and another Ronald room up in Cedar Rapids at Mercy Hospital. And what a Ronald room is an area where parents can sleep, nap, stay. If they need a break, if they have a child that has a critical illness and they just need time to get away, or they can walk their child down there and play cards. It's a non-hospital environment in the hospital. From our organization, we're the largest, to the Ronald McDonald House area, we're the largest private contributor to that. Our donations, the McDonald's donations account for about 20% of the annual budget. The Eastern Iowa Co-op gives a cash contribution annually of $10,000 that the house uses for anything from new carpet to new couches. The Give a Hand Day of Change, the 365 program, in our donation boxes, in our restaurants, and the 40-store co-op generates about $84,000 a year annually, which helps fund scholarships and other grants. So we very much believe in giving back, and the Ronald McDonald House and RMHC we think is a great way to do that. Number of McDonald's restaurants in Iowa, and there is still room to grow, but what you'll see probably is more of these sites in smaller venues. In Iowa, 143 restaurants. This is what our annual tax dollars, this is what we spend in Iowa as far as an economic partner for Iowa. Agriculture, over $500 million on products like beef, corn, pork, 1.2 billion eggs come out of Iowa annually. It's mind-boggling. Think about it. So people ask me, they say, well, you're a franchisee, so you kind of have to do whatever they tell you. You don't really have a lot of room to move around. You know, do your thing. So if you've been on Interstate 80, one of the things that's important to me is agriculture in Iowa is a huge driver of our economy. It pays for tractors, it pays for farmers, it pays for workers, it does all these other things, and it's a huge export product. So one of the things that I got to do, and marketing is an important factor for me. So this was our idea. We found a farmer that was willing to allow us to paint the barn. So we've gotten a lot of press. We've got some national press out of this barn, and it shows our commitment to Iowa agriculture, and also lets people know that we're loving it. So this is something that we did, specifically my group did, and we contracted our ad agency, and we said we want to pick barns to do this, to show people what we're doing. So this has gotten also national attention, but other McDonald's people have also picked this up, and they've painted barns and done some other things to help talk to people about what the economic impact is of McDonald's and the brand.
So these are some of our suppliers. Quaker Oats for our oatmeal, 100 Circle and Simplot. Simplot is one of the largest producers of potato products in the country. They're a national brand. You can find them in the grocery store. Baldinger Buns is a single-purpose supplier that produces some of the best bakery products in the world. Coke, who doesn't know Coke? An interesting fact about McDonald's and the amount of product that they use. If we decided to drop Coke and go to McCola, it would be the #1 selling brand in the world. So Coke is very nice to us. Coffee, one of the best brands in the country. Otto & Sons Beef is also a very highly respected beef processor and one of our sole providers. And Tyson, I think you've all heard of Tyson. They're one of the largest producers of cheese in the country, and so that's where our products come from. And there are other suppliers, but sometimes people say, well, you know, it must not be very good. When Taco Bell had their mystery meat a couple of years ago, you know, some of my friends said, well, you buy it from the same place as Taco Bell. And I said, well, we don't. And I said, I can tell you that if we did, it would be all over the press. Because Taco Bell went through a lot of stuff because of what they did. So we buy the best products that we can. I'll tell you a quick story about a supplier. We have big national meetings, and so there was a dairy supplier out of California, considered one of the top suppliers in the country when we did our fruit smoothies. So I asked him, I said, tell me what it's like to be a supplier from McDonald's. And he said, well, I'm going to tell you the first part of it, and I don't want you to take offense because I had some preconceived notions about what it was like to supply McDonald's. I got a call from National, they came out and looked at the stuff, and so I had my people take our third-tier product, our strawberries, our blueberries, our raspberries, and you know, he said we have an A level, B level, C level, and so we laid out all the C level stuff for McDonald's because we really thought that's what they wanted. They're going to be cheap on the price, and they're going to try to negotiate this down and all this other stuff. So he said they come in there and they start to look, and they're very quiet. And everything is laid out in front, we tested and everything, and they said, can we meet you in your office? And so they adjourned to his office, and they said, you know, we can be frank, we heard you were the best in California, and frankly, this product is not very good. We can't use it. And they said, don't you have anything better? And he goes, well, yeah, we do. And he said, I thought that you were McDonald, you weren't going to do that stuff. And they said, show us your best stuff. And so he goes in, and they bring all, so they show him their A-level product, and they said, we want all of this. We'll take everything you have. The rest of that stuff you can sell to Starbucks. You can convert it. Seriously. And he said, I was amazed. And he said, so we constantly have our best products, and that's all your buyers will buy. Because it's really critically important to us. Because we buy so much, to give you a brief idea of what that looks like. Okay, I already told you the Coke story, but 20-some years ago, we had a shrimp salad, had 2 ounces of shrimp on it that we sold. It was very popular, and so the test went well. So what they did was they went to their environmental people, and they said, tell us how long it will take. Because some products, we have to gear up 2 years. We make the plan that we're going to start selling something, and it takes 2 years to get enough supply, enough buffer so we can supply the system. So they went and they did a year-long study, and they came back and they said, you're not going to be able to sell shrimp salads. And they said, well, how come? And they said, the environmentalists came back and they said, you would raise the consumption of shrimp by over 56% the first year. In 2.5 years, you would deplete the oceans of shrimp. You may think about that. So what we do, how we produce food, how we coach our suppliers to make their food, to process their food, we have tremendous leverage. We work with the Wildlife Fund. We're going to get to that thing. So, I'm sorry, go to the next one. World Wildlife Fund, we do all kinds of different things, which we'll come back to, I'm sorry. So McDonald's U.S. sales, $36 billion, $70 billion, 69 million people are fed every day, $1.8 million, and 1.8 million employees worldwide. We're the world's largest distributor of toys. When we used to do these movie things where we would give if you ever remember what videotapes look like. When we did that for a 6-week period over Christmas time, we would buy these movies in bulk and then sell them. We were the largest retailer of movies when Blockbuster, if you remember that name, they used to be the name in videos. So Blockbuster told their movie distributors, if you continue to sell McDonald's, we will drop carrying your films. Well, they said that's okay because McDonald's for that 6-week period is the #1 distributor of movies in the world. So you're going to have to either live with McDonald's or we're not going to stop working with McDonald's. So what's available for someone like me? The leadership positions that are highlighted are situations that I've leadership council committees that I've served on. The economic strategy system, 10 years ago, McDonald's stock traded at about $12, and they were thinking that McDonald's was going to go the way of Sears. In fact, they said the golden arches were tarnished and they're going to turn the company around. So I was on what they call a systems economic team, and we sat and we talked to some of McDonald's top management, and they told us, they said, okay, we've explored everything that we can do. We don't know what to do. We're in trouble. And so at the time, Wendy's was kind of on a roll. They were the golden child of the building new restaurants. Culver's was just coming up. So we were a 50-year-old system that looked like we were 65. Our stores were, as a system, there wasn't enough money in the operator chain to be able to get the job done and do the remodeling and the reinvestment that had to be done. So I'm going to tell you a story. It seems very self-serving, but I'm telling you as entrepreneurs, as people that want to step out in the business world, is that there are times where people at the top don't know what they're talking about or have lost touch with their business. So I'm in a meeting with 20 people, and it's an operator-only group, and I said, well, here's what we need to do. Has everybody got a chance to throw out an economic strategy? I said, the first thing is that the system needs to be rebuilt. And I said, it'll take about $3 billion to do that. This was 12 years ago. And I said, so McDonald's, how the franchise system works is McDonald's builds a building, and then we rent the building from them, and we pay on our sales. So really, McDonald's is a real estate company that sells hamburgers. That's a very interesting thing to think about, is that the more sales that we generate for McDonald's, the more money they make, because they get a percentage of right off the top. So McDonald's never, once you turn the keys and open it up, everything else is on you. So McDonald's didn't really reinvest with the operators because they said, hey, that's your job. Once we do our thing, we're out of here. And so you have to do that. So what happened is, went around the room, they said, this is our strategy. Everybody, it was my first meeting, they said, well, you can't ask for that. Nobody's ever asked for that. I said, well, that's what it's going to take. So we come around the room, all the execs come in, and it comes to me, and I said, well, here's what you need to do. You need to invest $1.2 billion of your own money into this to help the operators grow and fix the system. The room's totally quiet. The CEO looks at me and he said, is that a 1 with 9 zeros? I said, yeah. And I said, the number is probably close to 1.2. And everybody started laughing. And he goes, where are you? He said, who are you and where are you from? And I said, well, this obviously is going to be my last meeting. But I said, you asked me. I said, I'm a hayseed from Iowa. But I can tell you that when I talk to my customers and when I look around at the market and I see what's going to happen, if you want to fix the system, you're going to have to step to the plate, even though you've never done it before. 3 months later, they had a $950 million investment program that took McDonald's stock from $12 to where it is today. About 3 months ago, topped out at 103, added about $60 billion to their market cap. The point being is that as young people coming into a system, don't listen to the status quo. If you do your research and you look at things and you see things that you think should be done, stick to your guns. It's not about me. You know, when they said, oh, great job, how'd you think of all that stuff? I said, you know, I had the idea, but I said there was somebody in the corporation that knew something had to be done, and he or she had the guts to advance the idea. So it was a group of people working together, but you have to find the right mix. It totally changed McDonald's. At a time when there were other companies looking to buy McDonald's at $12 to $15 a share, because since they're a real estate company, the holdings of their real estate, they're one of the largest owners of real estate in the U.S. The real estate alone to be spun off was worth way more than $15 a share. So the point being, don't listen to the status quo. A lot of these people at the top, they expect it to be, I apologize if you are at the top, but you should listen to the people that are there every single day. every single day because they can teach us something. So I was on the franchising team, the real team, which helps operators make more money, a place team, which helps design our new buildings, and I was one of the people that helped design the new buildings and then improve the design. And then I'm currently I'm on the executive committee from McDonald's PAC, and there was also is our name up there? So there's a help with restructuring McDonald's. There's a reorganizing a management structure within the restaurants. It's called RDM, which is Restaurant Department Management. There are 3 operators selected across each. There's 3 divisions of McDonald's: the Central Division, which is the Midwest, East, and the West. And so I worked with 2 other operators selected to be on the team. And so the 3 of us restructured how McDonald's trains their people in a way that improves our profitability, our staffing, gives people a way to go. So I can show you from point A to point. If you start today, this is how long it will take. And what we did is we benchmarked off of 5 of the competitors we thought we would be hiring against in the next 10 years. FedEx, Best Buy, UPS, and companies like that. So, next one. So, what do operators bring to the table on this thing as far as being able to influence the system? The Happy Meal was an operator idea. The Egg McMuffin came from another operator. The Big Mac was a family out of Pittsburgh that came up with it, and the Filet-O-Fish. Chicken McNuggets were brought in. They had a cocktail party, and they said McDonald's has an executive chef, and so what they said to him is they said, we need some finger food for this event we're having. And he said, well, okay, let me come up with something. So he invented essentially Chicken McNuggets at the suggestion of one of the top people at McDonald's and an owner-operators. So these are iconic products. And these are things that owner-operators came up with. Do they get a cut off of that? No, they don't. It's just that, well, hey, you got your name associated with it, and hopefully you'll sell a lot of them, and so you make your money off of that. So what we try to do is come up with ideas we think are going to move the business. We're involved in things like the Governor's Charity Steer Show, which the governor has been very involved in. For 30 years, we've been one of the top contributors. We buy a steer. And then usually what we do is we either donate it back to the 4-H or whoever, the individual that raised it, or we will sell it back to other providers. So, but it's a great fundraiser for the Ronald McDonald houses in Iowa, and they've raised well over $1 million that has been divided in ways between our Iowa houses. So the Dorothy OBrien Award, my mother liked hats, and so this award was designed by, there's a Women's Operator Network, and every other year it's given to the outstanding woman, female owner-operator in McDonald's, and so we've given this award out every other year for the last 8 years in her honor. Diversity, what does McDonald's do? More than 70% of McDonald's workforce is comprised of women and people of color. There are more women in management running the restaurants and the corporation than there are males by a large margin. Pretty interesting for a company that didn't allow women to work until 1963. And I think if you look at the growth chart, 1963, when women started working, way up there. Are you with me, women? Yeah? So more than 25% of our leadership team are women of color. Catalyst Award recipient, 2011, recognition of our Strategic Women's Initiative, McDonald's founding member of the Asian Pacific Islander American Scholarship Fund, Corporate Leadership Award, Corporate Executive Award recipient for our distinguished African American leaders, best place to work for Hispanics and Latinos according to Hispanic Business Magazine. Sustainability, McDonald's. Canada, switch to unbleached napkins. Greening the restaurant, we're looking at LEED certified buildings, and we do everything from waterless toilets now to, there are some new things that are coming out, panels that are, that cars park under the pickup sun that you can recharge, that will light our parking lot lights. So McDonald's is on the front edge of the green movement. Logistics, United Arab Emirates supply truck fleet runs on 100% biodiesel fuel, made from recycled vegetable oil, which is what we cook with. McDonald's of Australia has a 90% recycling rate in the restaurants. In energy, McDonald's in Europe has a carbon footprint toolkit. McDonald's Spain has environmental training as part of its orientation. What's our product like? I know this is going to be hard to believe and extremely self-serving, but I've talked to coffee buyers, and the coffee that we buy is the best. The coffee that they sell to Starbucks is the second tier. When they did blind taste test on Good Morning America, we beat Starbucks 2-1. Arabica beans purchased from Rainforest Alliance, Fair Trade, Farmer Training, $6 million for technical assistance, commodity assistance, Guatemala Central. We work with everybody all over the world to help them do a better job producing products in a way that is environmentally responsible. Partnered with the World Wildlife Fund to develop a global roundtable for sustainable beef, guiding principles and best practices. Much of how we're one of the first companies to incorporate nutrition values on the menu, largest distributors of salads and apples in the U.S. One of the things about the apple market is that back in 2007, the apple market was on the verge of collapse around the U.S., and that's about the same time that we introduced apples in our Happy Meals. It totally turned around the apple trade because we go through so many of them. People are shocked and they're like, well, where are you selling those salads and the most apples? There's a huge footprint on it, and when we get behind something, we can really make a difference. You may have heard somebody, a teacher from the central Iowa, his name is John Sista. He was, about 4 weeks ago, he was the number, on Yahoo's list, he was the #2 research name in the country. So what he has done, he has come up with a McDonald's diet. He and I actually talk every single day. He came to us about 6 months ago with a plan. He said, I saw it supersized. And he said, I thought it was ridiculous. And he said, so I want to do something. I just want to, if you'll supply the food, he said, I'll do a McDonald's diet. So that's what he did. So he has a book that's coming out next week. He will have a weigh-in. Neil Cavuto actually was so impressed with this from the Fox Business Channel that he wrote the foreword to John's book. And John will have a weigh-in next week, and he decided to stay on the program for 6 months. He will have lost over 55 pounds, and he will have reduced his all of his markers for cholesterol, salt, to actually his doctor said you are in perfect health. And so what he did for the first 90 days when he lost 37 pounds is he walked. And he acknowledges, he said, you know, I had to walk 45 minutes a day. He said I could barely make it the first 45 minutes. And he said now he's got a personal trainer and has continued to lose weight. And he'll weigh in at close to, I don't know if you can see him, but this was him kind of before and after. And on his after shot, he's dropped another 15 pounds since then. So one of the things that we talk about is it's about choice. And he didn't just go and hail the food when he ate. What he did was he would have an egg white delight, an oatmeal, a yogurt parfait, he would have a wrap for lunch, and then he would have a Big Mac or quarter pounder, whatever extra value that he wanted. And because one, he was active, and because #2, he worked with students, the students helped design the diet, he actually, because of the choices he made, and because of the activity that he did, he was able to make significant improvements in his health. For me, that says, if we handle this the right way, from a marketing standpoint, is that we have a very simple way to change the way people eat. There are 14,000 locations in the U.S. alone. And by encouraging people to make smart choices, whether it's McDonald's or somewhere else, we think we can significantly change the health of the U.S. And we're convenient and we're right away. You don't have to subscribe to anything. What we're working on, we hope, is an app that allows you to barcode, scan it in on your phone, and it will tell you, based on what you ordered at McDonald's, it will tell you what you can have the rest of the day to stay within the guidelines and help you get fit. And guy came from Iowa. And he works with two local, myself and a gentleman out of Ames, Iowa, so we put the idea together. He did all the work. But when you look at what can I do to affect a brand like this that's so big, there's a lot you can do. So with that, thank you very much, and I hope I kept you awake for most of it. Are there questions? Yes.
So how do you get along with
Well, so what McDonald's does is they're...
Could you repeat the question, please?
Yes. So the question was, how do we get along with other operators that we board markets with? And so sometimes we have to pitch. We put a marketing project together. We show what kind of restaurants we want to run. We look at how we would market, and then we compete with it. Because the market has gotten so that we sort of bump into each other now from extensibility. So there's like the Washington McDonald's was actually in another person's area, but we put a significant marketing program together, and so we were able to reward that restaurant. For the most part, once the award's done, and you kind of get over licking your wounds, then what happens is we move on, because our goal is to take our competitors out, not to take each other out. So we work very closely to market together. Although we don't always agree. We do some things here that are a little more aggressive than other markets do. And like Jordan, we gave away, we have these vegetarian wraps, and a lot of people like to get them. So Jordan went out and I said, I want everybody to taste them. So she went out and gave 1,000 of them away. So we did create some awareness. Now sometimes you go to the market, so what we try to do is maximize our market. And so we look for good ideas that other operators are still shamelessly. And we want to be dominant, because when markets come up for sale, there's further expansion, we want to be the operating choice. Yes. Well, it was so long ago, and I was, I was a young kid, and I don't. If I find it in their archives, I'll let you know. But we did find Ronald in one of the houses when we were driving by. Somebody took Ronald off a bench, they unbolted him. And what was interesting is it takes a long time to get him off, because we had really long bolts. And so what the police figured out is that they had put the tools there for about 3 days. And then they lifted him out, and so we drove by one time downtown, and so Ronald was so, my parents were good sports, and so they made kind of a joke about it. So we gave him some ransom, which was some big rags for the house. Yes. So the franchise law was, what happened was there were a group of franchisees that didn't like what their franchisor was doing, particularly Dairy Queen and Pizza Hut. And so what they did is they went to the legislature and they said, hey, these big nasty franchisors are pushing us around, they're trying to make us do stuff that we don't want to do, and so we need your help. So I'll give you another thing about corporate stuff, about corporate, how to deal with a corporation. So there were things in the law that were beneficial to us as a franchisee that we would be interested in. However, McDonald's was afraid that we were going to support them, that we were going to support this change in the law. So what they told us at a big operating meeting, and they said, hey, this is coming up, we have it handled, don't worry about it. So my parents had been around long enough that they were good friends with the governor, and there were some other people there that had been active in communities in the state. And we said, so should we start to lay the groundwork to get this law stopped? And so the corporate people said, no, we've got to handle it. So what they did was, they didn't tell us anything, and so they handled it. Well, how they handled it was, I got a call 3 days before the bill passed 81-7. So that was not good for us. That was horrible for us. And so it was so restricted that McDonald's said, we can't do business in Iowa because when your agreements come up, we're not going to do it. So we went back to corporate and we said, what happened? Well, we kind of misjudged it. We have big time. And so we spent 6 years going to the Capitol. I was there every session for at least 2 days a week, working on people to explain to them how it was hurting Iowa, how it was hurting McDonald's, how it would hurt everybody else. And so finally we were able to rewrite the law. But it took 6 years. And what probably would have had we locally lobbied our state representatives wouldn't have been a problem. But because there was, and the governor said to us, because we never said anything, we thought it was okay. So, you know, corporate people always. Let me tell you one other story quickly about the corporate stuff. Anybody heard of Chipotle? You know, we used to own Chipotle. We used to own Chipotle, and Chipotle talks about a lot of things about their products and everything. Chipotle has the same distribution system that we do. There's a company out of Illinois, Mark Brower, supports a lot of Chipotle restaurants in the area. What's interesting is I was chairman of Partner Brands, and we owned Chipotle, and my job was to incorporate Chipotle into the McDonald's system. So I had a long talk with our CEO, and I said, hey, we need to keep this brand. He said, oh, it's going to be a distraction for you guys, and all this other stuff. And so they made the conscious decision after a lot of talking and letting me know that if I pursued that conversation, that my career would be short-lived. And so they ended up selling. Well, they sold it. They were very excited about the fact that they sold it, and they got all their money back, $1.5 billion of all the other things that they had dabbled in. They owned a company called Fred & Mache, which is based out of Europe, which was some prepackaged sandwiches that they were going to bring in. They were going to buy facilities. They bought Boston Market because Boston Market was on the verge of bankruptcy, and they got $800 million worth of real estate and buildings for about $120 million. So they were going to work some of those. So things were going great. But they sell Chipotle, make all this money, and Chipotle now is worth over $18 billion. So they sometimes make mistakes. And so there's, and I'm not criticizing necessarily top management, but the people on the ground like me knew that this was a big deal. And why did I? Because I worked in a college market. And because college kids would come to me and talk to me about, hey, I was in Chicago, I had Chipotle, I was in Denver. This is amazing. You guys need to do this, because they knew that we owned it. So we bought Chipotle when there were 18 restaurants in the system. We gave them our distribution center, which allows them to buy food and commodities at a much lower price than any of their competitors, and the rest is history. So an interesting decision you make that you should have. Yes?
There are differences between food preferences throughout the globe, but do you notice any differences between the Midwest taste versus the coast taste, and are you doing anything to adapt to those preferences?
So the question is, what are the differences in taste profiles between the Midwest and say the East Coast or the West Coast? So coffee, for example, on the East Coast, people like coffee stronger than they do in the Midwest. And so if you go there, you'll find that the coffee has a significantly different flavor than it does. Midwestern people don't necessarily like the East Coast type of coffee. And it pretty much runs up and down the whole coast because a lot of snowbirds come from New York and go down to Florida. California, Texas, their taste profile, especially in Texas, they look for a more spicy product. So there's some other products there that have a hotter Chipotle pepper flavor to them. And so we try to bring those in because in our market, which is so diverse, we get people that come from all over the world to be in our restaurants. And so we try to get as many of those products in as we possibly can. Yes? Yes?
Kind of touched on it about like sticky or gums, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like more broad scale, like outside of McDonald's. What's one piece of advice that you would give to like anyone looking to do this going on? I don't mean to put you on the spot.
Pardon me?
I don't mean to put you on the spot.
So I think for your generation, this is the most exciting time to be in business. There's a lot that you listen to the news, everybody talks about the country's going to hell and blah, 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 and all this other stuff. I don't think that's true. What I do think is that there are things going on from an entrepreneurial point of view that you can be right on the edge of. And the reason is that who uses Facebook? Okay? So I use Facebook, and my daughters, so what my daughters tell me, I have a 16 and a 14-year-old. So Facebook is kind of like the wow, kind of the technology, really cool kind of thing. You know, my 16-year-old daughter tells me, dude, that is so yes. I'm like, what? And she said, old people use Facebook. She said, we don't use it. My 16-year-old daughter and my 14-year-old daughter tell me that I'm out of date because I use Facebook. So what does that tell me? That tells me that there is a new product. Here's Facebook. They just went public. They're 10 years old. So what's happening for you is that the opportunity for you to come up with the next new Facebook, the next new whatever it is laying out there in front of you, and you don't have to go up against a Facebook, an AT&T, or whatever it is. The market is there for you to go out and find the next new big thing, whatever that is. And so my advice to you is to keep looking and talk to people. One of the things McDonald's is getting much better at than they ever used to do is they used to think this model was going to carry us. And the best advice that Ray Kroc said about the system is that somebody asked him 40 years ago, he said, Ray Kroc, what's McDonald's going to look like in the year 2000? And what he said was, because people think we're a hamburger chain, that's what we do. He goes, I don't know what we're going to be doing or selling in the year 2000. I just know that we're going to sell more of it than anybody else. And so the market, the advice to you, I had to give you a little bit of that story, but the advice to you is keep looking, keep asking questions, talk to 16-year-olds. You know, the weird thing is, if you're still using Facebook and you're 22 years old, you're considered out of it by 16-year-olds. So the cool thing about that is they're looking for the next new product. And you're the brain trust that's going to come up with it. Yes?
Would you tell the students what gave you the courage to tell the top executives at McDonald's that the traditional wisdom and supporting franchisees was wrong? What gave you the courage to do that?
Her name is Dorothy OBrien. So quickly about her, which tells you about what she was. One is that she said the experts usually are experts for a reason, and the reason is they stop learning. So my mom had breast cancer, didn't like doctors. She had a tumor that metastasized to her rib. And so she let it go, and she shouldn't have. But the deal is that my sister took her into Chicago, and so she went there, and she got the exam. The doctor goes to her. He says, well, I don't know why. You waited too long. I don't know why. If you're coming to me, it's too late. He goes, make out your will and take care of your stuff because you're going to be dead in 6 months. She looked at him and she says, the hell I will. And she said, I'm going to go find somebody that has faith in me, and we're going to get this fixed. And as she left, this is what she said, so don't hold this against me. As she left his office, she turned to him and she said, and by the way, you're a shitty doctor. You know why? Because you take hope away. She said, whether I live 6 months or not, you should never, ever tell anybody that, especially a woman. And so what she taught me is that the experts don't always know what they're doing. And if you feel something and you believe in something, then you can do it. For the record, she found 2 physicians here, there's 2 of them, and she lived 10 years, and she had an incredible life. So the other thing about her that's a miracle is that a year after that diagnosis, and she came here, she had a thoracic surgeon, one of the best at the university. I met him at a cocktail party. We were doing a fundraiser for something, and he said, hey, is your mom Dorothy? What's your mom, Dorothy OBrien? And I said, yeah, and I said, Dorothy OBrien is still my mom. And he said, well, yeah, I know. He said, I'm really sorry. And he kind of paused me, and I said, what are you sorry for? And he said, well, obviously, I was the thoracic surgeon that did the exam on her, and he said in order to remove the tumor, we would have had to pull half of her skeletal structure off. And it was so bad, he said, I'm assuming that she passed away. And I said, well, why didn't you come to lunch tomorrow and I'll introduce you to her? I said, because she's alive and doing very well. And he goes, it's the worst case I've ever seen. It's a miracle that she's alive. And she lived 9 years after.
do like expanding stories, I'm more interested in like how do you fix like unsatisfying customer service, and how exactly do you perfect the promotion system and stuff like that.
So how do you encourage people to do a good job, take care of customers?
Yes, exactly.
And
Because I understand food service, the key to food service is very good customer service.
Right.
But in most these kind of like franchises like McDonald's, they have like really crappy food service. That's why they like a lot of food companies that fail.
they have really crappy service?
Yeah, like McDonald's, they really have such a perfect.
Okay, is anything else? Take it as key concept. So I understand exactly what you're saying. It's how do you motivate people to do a good job at an entry level position? So one of the things that we do is we look at incentivizing people. We try to do things, whether it's we have an annual banquet where we give away a lot of different cash prizes. We give away iPods. We give away video recorders. We try to find things that that people are interested in. For example, there are times where we look at what people's hobbies are. We give away concert tickets. We look at good customer service. We try to hire people that take good care of other people. That's the key, because without that, you're absolutely right. Without that, we can't give the kind of customer service that's necessary. Because yes, money is important, and we have one of the highest. How I take care of my people is one of the highest in the Midwest region. But money isn't so much the issue as it is everybody gets a birthday card. We look to make sure that they understand how important it is to our business. We don't always hit the mark. It's frustrating. A lot of times I'm involved in talking to people and showing them what our vision is, and we try to tell them this is what we're about and this is what our history is. And so we also offer promotions. There are people that start with us that because of a networking situation where we put them in contact with people that help them with their career. So we try to take a genuine interest in everybody that works for us, and we have about 400 people. Does that answer your question?
I'm more interested in like.
I guess not.
Yes, but if like you don't really offer any monetary additional awards, how do you keep people motivated?
Well, one is that we try to hire people that enjoy other people, because it's really about the people business. That's what it is. It's about what is it like to, we try to have a culture that takes care of people. So we try to find out the things that you're interested in. We try to work with you on your school schedule. We try to put you in touch with people that, that can help you, whether you stay with a career with us or whether you move on. We try to show a genuine interest in the individual so that they feel that they work in a family type situation. I mean, I have front counter people who have been with me 20 years because we remember their birthday, we take care of their kids, we do some other things for them. So a genuine caring about the people that you work with is the most effective way I know to keep people motivated. And we always talk about the mission all the time. Am I close here? Does that help you? No?
Yeah, it helps me.
Yeah. So one of the things that we do, for example, is that I go in and do research, and I find out the best companies in the world to work for. And an interesting thing about management is Southwest Airlines is one of them. And I think, how do they get people to work for less than the scale, less than what the average is, and they have the best customer satisfaction as a worker? So we try to treat our staff like their customers, because my job and my staff's job is to do exactly that, is to make their life easier so that they can serve the customer. So there's two companies that have very high rankings. Lincoln Electric is one of them. They make electric welding systems. They're loyal, and they have very high job satisfaction because they make a ton of money. They don't necessarily like management, but they get paid extremely well for what they do. The other one is Southwest, which is totally different. Lower pay scale, they love management because it's fun to work there. So what happens is you have to decide, if you start your own company, do you want people to love to work there? Or are you able to compensate them at a level where, you can kind of do whatever you want with them, and they're going to stick it out because of the pay that they get.
Those are things that I constantly benchmark against people outside of my industry to see what we can do to bring creative ideas and to keep our people, our staff in that happy. Yes, one more? You have one?
No.
Oh, I guess one more. One more question? Yes.
Sorry, this is not an entrepreneurial question at all, but I was wondering, what are you doing as like an owner or planning on doing in future prospects to combat like the negative stigma that's always associated with McDonald's and their nutritional bases? Besides like the basic adding occasional like options as food, like is there another initiative that you guys are planning on doing?
That's a great point. One of the key things for me is that we are working with, there's a woman that works for McDonald's, her name is Cindy Goody. She's from West Branch, Iowa. She worked at Hy-Vee. She's the head of nutrition for the U.S. market. There is the College of Public Health at the university we're working with to develop. One of the things, John Sisna has made it possible and educating people because it's about choice. If you Google, when you go home, Google Chipotle versus Big Mac, you'll be stunned at the amount of, I don't know if you think Chipotle is healthy, guarantee you it's not. There's nothing wrong with it. I certainly like their taste profile and things like that. So there isn't anything healthy about heavy sodium in rice, all the other cheese and sour cream, all that other stuff that is put on there. Those aren't necessarily healthy choices. But our goal, and what we're trying to do, and there's a group of us, is we're trying to, one, bring products in that customers want, and the other is to educate customers about healthy choices. And one of the things that we're looking at is trying to do this app. So if you say, okay, I'm going to have a different nutrition value, I'm going to have this, that, or whatever, and you scan it in and say, this is the calorie count and the fat and everything else. So the next thing, what can I have at McDonald's or whoever? At lunch or dinner, or how do I do that? So our goal is to try to educate customers into making smart choices in their menu, as everybody should. I mean, but we were one of the first companies years ago to put nutritional information on our products. The problem with that is nobody else did, and so when you look at, when you go say, oh, geez, McDonald's, well, go now look at how much is in a caramel macchiato latte at Starbucks. You know. About an average slice, who can eat more than one piece of pizza? Almost everybody. So, on average, a slice of pizza, Big Mac, finish your value. A lot. So does that help you? I totally get it. We're working very hard. And with McDonald's, we're coming out with some other nutritional things this year. But we're trying to locally partner with the College of Public Health, Cindy, because they've got Iowa connections they get. I firmly believe that the amount of people that we serve every day and the messaging about a healthier lifestyle, we can change that and change what we